I'm going to get everybody's attention. Our next presenter, we have two of them. Mireille, we can see her in the back, Mireille Huneault. She's live from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and we have Craig Batty. He's sitting to my left. Both of them will be doing a dual presentation today. And Mireille will be speaking first, so I'll introduce her first, and Craig will take the stage after I introduce both of them. Mireille brings with her over 30 years' experience in the mental health field, including both management and direct service capabilities. Mireille is a certified mental health first aid instructor, safe talk trainer, and assist trainer, and has delivered workshops pertaining to mental health subject matters to a broad range of participants, both in English and in French. Mireille has been involved in the Ontario Hockey League through the Talk Today program, delivering workshops around suicide prevention to league members of the Oshawa Generals. Both her professional and lived experience provide relevant context aiding in facilitating meaningful interventions pertaining to mental health. Mireille is currently employed at the Canadian Mental Health Association, Durham, as a French language services lead educator. We are grateful to have here for their presentation, Staying Well Together. We will advise you that this presentation includes content dealing with suicide and suicide prevention. And now I'm going to introduce Craig Batty. He'll be joining live. Craig Batty has been a CUSW member since 2011, a workplace rep in Ottawa for 4 years. He was a member of the National Executive Board for 3 years as recorder and 6 years as treasurer. He is coordinator for member family assistance for the past 4 years, presently the administrator of the Power Sector Benefit Trust.
All right, so thank you for having me today. I had the opportunity to listen in a little bit on the ways that you are talking about weaving in acts of kindness in the workplace. It's a beautiful theme, and it segues right into what Craig and I are going to talk about today, is kindness not only to each other, but kindness to ourselves. So I always like to start every talk with a little assessment. How are you doing today? When you woke up this morning, what were some of the indicators that you were doing well? Indicators of good mental health. I want the group to think about that for a moment. And if you'd like, you could share with each other or just let me know what are some of the signs that you're doing well.
I'm going to pop in here to translate what I'm hearing. So I'm hearing energy.
Okay.
That's a sign you're doing well. Sorry?
Energy.
Woke up. So woke up in the morning.
You woke up.
That's it.
That's huge for
Anybody
some
else?
people.
Yeah.
Went on a walk to the falls and back.
Oh, we're in Niagara Falls, so went on a walk to the falls and back.
Oh,
Excellent.
okay, that's beautiful. Well, in 20-degree weather, that's easy to do. Not like -6 here in Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, exactly. Good.
Excellent. So, and these are all things that indicate that we're doing well. They're little things, but they're also big things. I know that we're in this conference, we're talking about the little things that count. And those little things can also apply to our own mental health as well. So keep that in mind in terms of how you're doing. We often ask a scaling question on a level from 0 to 5, where would you put yourself today? Personally, I would put myself as a 4.5 because I'm super excited to be here and a tad nervous as well, speaking to a large number of people where I can only virtually see. So keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. So I start out with a couple of definitions around good mental health. What exactly does it involve? We already mentioned a number of things just in the group right now. It's feeling good physically and mentally. And whatever feeling good means to you, feeling good to me involves a really nice long sleep. I'm a creature of sleep. I love naps. I love waking up and feeling refreshed. Feeling good to me involves being able to socialize with my peeps, my friends, and to be able to thrive in life. The ability also to cope effectively with everyday challenges, because those challenges don't stop, they keep coming. But it's my capacity to be able to deal with those challenges and still feel centered and calm. And that's good mental health. Resilience is a big part of it. So when we talk about mental health problems, what does that mean? When somebody says, yeah, well, I've had some problems with my mental health. Well, that's a broad term, which is why we use an umbrella. Mental health problems can include a diagnosis or disorder, but it can also include things that may not be severe enough to warrant a diagnosis. So what I'm pointing to here is a spectrum, okay? So we may have problems with our mental health, but it may not be severe enough to warrant any sort of diagnosis. So that's the first term that I want people to be aware of. When we get into mental disorders, this is a whole different thing. In order for something to be a disorder, okay, it has to severely impact a person's thinking, emotional state, behavior, causing major disruptions with work and with personal relationships. So for example, if I'm having a really stressful day, okay, so I've had, my workload is really high, I'm stressed, I'm feeling anxious, and I know there's an upcoming deadline that I have to meet or a project I have to finish. I may feel a great deal of anxiety, but it may not be problematic because it's really unique and specific to the task at hand. Once that task is over with, I might feel a little bit of relief. And perhaps it can become problematic over time. And if it does, beyond the task, then I might be getting into more problems related to my anxiety. But for it to be a disorder, it has to really be impactful. So whereas if it's a problem, I can probably still finish some of my tasks, but by the time it gets severe enough for disorder, I may not even be coming into work. And we'll get more into what that looks like when someone starts to not feel well. Okay, why are we discussing this? Isn't this all about self-care and wellness and empathy? Because mental health and empathy and self-care and wellness are all interrelated. And we still have a long way to go when it comes to breaking stigma around mental health issues. 30 years ago, these types of conferences and presentations were non-existent. We didn't tie mental illness and mental wellness very well together, but we really are starting to come together around these types of things, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So, a few statistics when it comes to mental health problems. The 1 in 5, and this is a very common one. If you Google 1 in 5, this stat will come up everywhere. 1 in 5 Canadians will personally experience a mental illness in their lifetime. So if there are 60 people in the room right now, that means that 20% of you, so 12 people, will experience some sort of mental illness. Okay, so if you look around the room, you will see that, somebody has, or will come in contact with some sort of issues with mental health. We don't always see it. You might look at the person beside you and have no idea what they're going through. It can still be really invisible to a lot of people. So there's your stat around the 1 in 5. The remaining 4 will have a friend, family member, or colleague who will have struggles. Raise your hand if you personally know somebody who has struggled with mental health issues. I see a lot of hands. I see almost everybody. So that's everyone in this room. Everyone in this room is impacted somehow by mental illness. Here's the other stat. So mental health problems or mental health difficulties, we just talked about the broader term, half of us will struggle with our mental health in our lifetime. Okay? So now that number goes up to 30. Okay? If there are 60 people in the room, it's 30. So half of us. So we're no stranger to this. And even though these statistics are so high, there are many of us who still don't get the help they need early enough so that their recovery is quicker and that they can get back to their daily lives in the way in which they want to. Okay? So that's why we still need to talk about it. Many of us aren't informed. And so what do I mean by informed? We don't need to take a psychology course on all the illnesses out there to have a better understanding of mental health. What we mean by informed is being informed enough, being informed about how we work as a human being. What are our personal signs that we're not doing well? And can we help our loved ones, our colleagues, our friends with some of those indicators? Sometimes when people aren't feeling well, they're the last to know. And sometimes they're the first to know. If I'm not feeling well, the first people who will notice that are my immediate family. My mom especially. Oh, Mireille, you look really tired. Those are big circles underneath your eyes. Are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Typical things a mother would ask. Very fortunate to have my mom still with me today. But are we able to ask those questions of each other to be able to perhaps prevent or intervene when problems arise? That's what I mean by well-informed. So I promised earlier I would talk a little bit about the continuum or the spectrum. Here on the screen we have green, yellow, and red. Okay? The green represents healthy. And so when I asked you this morning, how do you know you're doing well? Perhaps you might have answered some of these things. You're able to manage, you were able to get up. Somebody said I was able to get up on time for this conference. Well, that's huge. Because for someone who's coping with severe depression, they may be late for everything. Their resilience is high. Maybe the Wi-Fi wasn't working in the room, or maybe some of these little things that happen to us that trip us. We were able to manage them anyway. And we can add all sorts of other things around healthy. Able to take a joke, able to give a joke, even if it's not funny. The fact that your sense of humor is high. Your ability to socialize with your group. On the other end of and of course then we have the reacting. Okay, and the reacting is when things start to not be okay. So, and as we move to the right-hand side of this continuum, we start to see these signs. Unhealthy coping strategies, self-medication. What do I mean by that? An increase in substance use to be able to cope. We seem to be less resilient and more sensitive to things that happen to us that perhaps we ourselves considered manageable at one point. Lateness at work, absenteeism, low morale, and less tolerance for uncertainty and avoidance of tasks. And if we don't get the help we need, if we're unable to get back to a balanced state, we may find ourselves in what we call the danger zone, where we have an increase in unhealthy coping strategies and they become more entrenched. So if I'm used to having a glass of wine to relax after work each night, if that wine turns into a bottle of wine and then a bottle and a half and so on, it's becoming really entrenched. Now I'm drinking on the weekends, even though I don't need it for work. So it depicts an augmentation of these things. Desensitized to your workplace. I know in my field, we always have to be on. We have to listen to our clients. We have to be able to be at our best. But after a while, we can experience burnout, particularly if we're not taking care of ourselves. And our jobs become less meaningful. And I can bet that's the same in terms of other workplaces where you once thought your job was meaningful to you, but because of distractions and things that are happening in your own life, the job takes a side, the job is shelved. Okay? We don't look at our job in the same way as we would if we were feeling good. So there's a continuum. And we all fit in here at some juncture of this chart. Okay, so when should we get the help? As soon as possible. When we're starting to react. You know, we don't wait till we get to the danger zone. But not everybody does it. And the question is why? Why, when we have Bell Let's Talk, we have all kinds of things out there around mental health, you know, how talking is important. So why aren't people still getting the help that they need? Actually, 3/4 of people are not seeking the help that they need. Part of it is that sometimes our mental health system is like a matrix. There's so many parts that people don't know where to start. And people sometimes think, and here's where we're not informed, that the only help possible is to see a psychiatrist, right? Or they might think, my problems are so big right now, I don't think anybody will be able to understand what I'm going through. And you know, if you're saying that to yourself, that's a sign that you're not doing well. When you think that your problems are so insurmountable that nobody's going to get it, right? I know that I felt like that when I had my bout of depression 10 years ago. I thought, why would I see a therapist? I'm in the mental health field. I know, you know, not every therapist is the same. But you know what? That's when I really needed to talk to somebody. I really needed somebody to help me unpack what was going on in my life at that time. And so many people often minimize their problems as well. Oh, well, you know what? There's people sicker than me. You know, I'm taking up valuable space for somebody else if I need it. I'm just feeling lazy. You know, oh, lazy. Where does that come from? That's stigma. And that's a big part of it too. Stigma. And so I'm not just talking about stigma around how we view other people who are not feeling well. If any of my friends came to me and said, Mireille, you know, I just feel like I want to sleep all the time. I'm so tired and I just don't see any way out of this. Would I say to them, come on, suck it up. All you need is a nap. All you need is to go to sleep. But if I was feeling the same way, would I give myself the same type of forgiveness and kindness that I'm giving to my friend? Probably not. How many times have you asked yourself, or if you've got up in the morning and thought, shoot, my mental health's not good today. And at the same beat, ask yourself to suck it up. I've done it. You know, just suck it up. Go to work. Like, ignore what's going on here, you know. Meanwhile, I've had a death in the family. I've had a father who's not feeling well. This happened last year to me, actually, where I thought I could just go to work and suck it up. Me, working in the mental health field, should know better. Nope. Suck it up, Mireille. Well, it turns out I needed help, and I needed to take some time. And I did. I did it, thankfully, I did it early enough. But stigma still exists with ourselves. So here's a good litmus test. I call it the best friend test. Okay? If what you're telling yourself is not acceptable for your best friend, then it should be acceptable to tell yourself that. If I'd never tell my best friend just to suck it up, it's just nothing. Okay? If I would never say that to her, then why would I say it to myself? Why are we so hard on ourselves still in 2023? Something to think about. So because of that, there is a long delay between developing a mental illness and receiving appropriate treatment and support. Okay? So and that's development. So as it develops over weeks, over months, things we don't just go from green to red in one fell swoop. There's some things that happen in between. Feelings of shame, blameworthy, and a real attempt to conceal the illness from others. So your happy, smiley person telling a lot of jokes, they may be the one who's struggling. We don't know. But the best way is to ask. And people are more likely to seek help if someone they trust suggests it. We might have a big matrix of what might help, but if my best friend says, hey, I know a great counselor, she's amazing, she helped me through this, here's her number, let's call together. A great way to help somebody. A small act of kindness that might speak volumes in someone's life could be life-changing. So, early intervention plays a really big role when we talk about this, because mental health problems become more serious as the delay progresses. Profound feelings of hopelessness and helplessness intensify to the point where an individual is in so much pain that perhaps sometimes maybe for the first time in their life, they're considering not being here. They're considering suicide. They're considering ending their life. Okay? And this is where it becomes serious. So, I have a few more statistics when it comes to suicide. And so this is the heart of the talk today in terms of the importance of self-care and helping each other before things get too serious. So I'm going to show you some stats. Canada's population was approximately 38 million, okay? And I can't see the back part of my screen. It's 2020, and it's 38 million. In 2020, we had 3,839 reported suicides. So that's when the coroner says, died by suicide, 3,000. So if I'm in charge of health services and if I'm a funder, I might look at that and go, well, 3,800, it's tragic, but more people died from COVID than suicide. So why should I put my money and invest in suicide prevention? Well, that just doesn't stop there. There are also unreported suicides that can be 5 to 25% more. So now our number goes from 3,800 to 4,600 at just a 20% increase. Numbers getting bigger. Why are there unreported suicides? Well, that's a totally different topic. But not every coroner sees a single vehicle car crash with a death as a suicide. So those numbers are not always accurate. And now let's look at suicide behaviors. A behavior is anything beyond a thought. It could be mild behaviors to more serious and life-threatening behaviors. So any sort of attempt of suicide. And look at that. It's 40 to 100 times greater. So now our little number of 3,800 goes to 460,000 people in Canada. Okay? That's the population of Winnipeg. So now you're looking at cities of people. But here's the other one. The number of people with thoughts of suicide, okay, which includes death by suicide, suicide behaviors, and thoughts, everyone. 5% of the population, or 1.9 million people in Canada, 5% of you at any given time will have thoughts of suicide. Now, the good news is it doesn't always lead to an attempt or death. If it did, we'd have 1.9 million deaths per year from suicide. But if someone's at the point where they're considering ending their life because they're in so much pain or they're feeling isolated, that's problematic. And they could have been thinking about that for years. So that's a little bit about suicide. So why have I brought this in? Again, it's a huge indicator that someone's not feeling well. And you might never know that the person beside you at one point was thinking about suicide, because a lot of times it's very well hidden, like the iceberg. These things are not reported. There's nobody that says on CTV News, well, the number of people with thoughts of suicide was 1.9 million in 2020. It's just not well advertised. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So I always thought that this slide was incredible to really give people a bigger picture of the importance of having meaningful conversations about wellness. And speaking about wellness, my colleague here, Craig, wants to share a little bit about his experience with mental health and to really bring home some lived experience with this topic. So without further ado, I want to welcome Craig up on the stage. So there he is. Hi, Craig.
Thanks, everybody. Mireille's going to ask me a few questions, and then I'm going to provide answers to those questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Craig. So Craig, first question is, why are you here today?
I'm here to tie things together about what we've learned over the past few days, tie it together in a real life situation that happened. The small things. Small things can have a profound effect on anything, on the outcome and somebody's mental health. Just saying hello to somebody can change their day. Acts of kindness, same thing. We talked about kindness, and acts of kindness can have a positive effect to somebody who's not in a good place. Asking them for coffee, bringing them a coffee, those are perfect things to do to boost somebody's mental health. Empathy. If you can empathize with the person, you can help them. I've had 2 situations with suicide in my family. Sorry.
Okay.
This is the hard part.
Yeah.
One of my kids, at 14, attempted twice. We got her to the hospital. She was successful. We got her healthy, and she's a grown person now and is doing very well. Myself, I am a survivor of suicide. And it was the little thing, it was one of the little things that saved my life. Something as simple as this picture that's up here is significant to me. Because on the day that I was going to do it, if I had a day like that, I would not be here talking to you. It's as simple as Kelsey McEwen from CTV got the weather wrong that day for my plan. Who knew that we can't predict the weather? It happened. So that's the little thing that changed. The whole thing was the weather changed everything for my frame of mind. Then I had to go to the hospital and whatever. So that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm here, is to open up the dialogue and talk more about suicide that's in our group. Because construction workers are 65% more likely to commit suicide than most other professions. So, interesting, and not something that we know. And we're a rough and tumble group, and we don't like to talk about this, and that's part of the emotion here. Okay, we're good?
Yeah.
Next
Thank you, Craig. I have a couple more questions around that. What do you think? I think you mentioned some of it, that you're a rough and tumble group, and there's a lot of overemphasis on independence with some groups, especially the construction. What do you think stopped you personally from getting help sooner?
Not knowing where to go, where to get help.
Yeah.
We have lots of resources with COSW and PSBT to assist in these situations. We need to use them. And talk about it, because we don't talk about it. And if we talk about it more, the more it can be brought to the surface, and we can prevent some of these things. If by me talking today can prevent one person, I did my job.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep. Yep. So
Yeah.
things that'll help, get counseling early. When you're in the yellow part of the spectrum, you can get help, and you can get through it. Know the warning signs. There's lots of warning signs. You know what your warning signs are. Mine are different from what yours would be. And if you're with someone and you suspect it, stay with them. Be in front of them. It's a private thing. They're not going to do it in front of you. Sorry. That can really, and just that alone, just stay with the person, you're going to prevent it. Okay?
These are really poignant, salient points around the value of support and the value of caring. We have one stat that we talk about all the time, that people are most likely to tell somebody that of their struggles if they feel that that person cares. That's a huge one. Craig, I have another question for you. During your recovery journey, what stood out to you as a major turning point? In other words, how did you know that you were going to be okay?
This speaks to the kindness that it was. My friends, my family, my wife, CUSW, PSBT, they supported me. They got me through my struggles. They're helping me today. Just being here today with you people is helping me. It's part of the therapy. Talking to you, getting this out, making the people aware does help.
Yeah.
Use the tools that you get in counseling. There's great tools that you can get from your counselor. And with our program, we offer some of the industry's best counseling available. Nobody gets 20 visits when they're in distress from anybody. It's 5 and out. 5 go to the public sector. That's not what our system does. Recognize the stressors. Again, my stressors are different than everybody else's, but recognize them, eliminate them, or reduce them. That's what I've done. The support, again, from John's group and PSBT has been wonderful. I can't say enough about that. Okay?
That's amazing. So you've segued right into my next question, Craig. And first of all, I want to say the fact that you're up here and telling your story is a sign of strength and resilience. So I want to thank you for doing this with me, Craig. It's really meaningful, and I think it's really meaningful for the group to hear your story. And I know that you're doing a number of things to stay healthy. One of them is talking here. Is there anything else that you do to stay healthy?
Lean on your friends and family. That's what I do. The work with MFAP and PSBT is great therapy for me.
Okay.
I have helped people in this room. You guys know who you are. You have helped me more than you know. It's great therapy to do this part of it, to help people and to get them in the right place so they don't end up where I was. One other thing is recovery is not a linear thing. You don't recover and it's a smooth, it's bumpy and hilly. And the supports that we have through CUSW and PSBT, they can smooth out that bumpy road in your recovery. So use them, take advantage of them, talk to our people. There's lots of people in this room that can direct you to the right place and use them. Because this group here is the group that I want to talk to and get through to, because you're going to take it out and get it to the rest of our members so they don't live through what I had to live through.
Greg, thank you very much for that. I think we need to give you a round of applause, Greg, because that was so impactful. Thank you so much for sharing. And look, for getting a standing ovation. That is incredible. I'm standing already, so thank you so much. So what Craig has done here is really give a first eyewitness to what can happen if we don't start these meaningful conversations. And sometimes it needs to be a caring person, someone who says, hey, how's it going today, Mireille? How did you sleep? You know, are you eating well? Starting these meaningful conversations can really build rapport. I have a quote from Jim Tomasaki, who's a retired line worker. I did a bit of research on your industry, who talks about safety being a process and a culture that encourages safe practices and anticipates hazard. So let's replace the word safety with mental wellness, right? Craig said it's not linear. It's not an absolute state. Rather, it's a process that encourages safe mental health practices and anticipates if someone's not feeling well, okay? What are some of the hazards? What are some of the things that bring you to the danger zone, right? When we talk about hazards, that yellow, what are some of the things that might impede us from getting well, and some of the things that can help us? So where do we go from here? Well, I know this lovely conference really takes apart some of the fundamental things of mental health, like empathy, like the small things, and validating experiences. That's empathy. Encouraging formal and informal supports. That's in this conference too. Providing ongoing education and initiatives that promote mentally healthy workplaces. Yep, check that one off too. And from what I've just heard minutes before I came on, were meaningful conversations. What can we do to help each other at work? What are some small but powerful acts of kindness that we can embed in the workplace so that we stay healthy? So that we can get used to talking about mental health? So that it's not something that I or you feel that we have to guard with our lives. Because in the end, it might actually just take our lives if we guard it. That's the irony. So I am an assist trainer, applied suicide intervention skills training, and this is actually where I met Craig and Kevin, who said, hey, why don't you come and talk about this at our conference? And the assist training is a workshop that teaches people how to ask those questions. Hey, how are you doing? You know, and it also helps to try to pinpoint if somebody's at risk of suicide, because there are things to look for. There are invitations to talk while subtle. And we learn to ask the question. And you know what? Anybody can do it. You don't have to wait for psychiatrists. In fact, psychiatrists might not be the most direct way of getting help. The most direct way of getting help is helping each other. We are the front lines here. It's not the mental health professionals. Yes, they play a large role. They do. But you may be the first one to realize that somebody is at risk. So that person might tell you about it. Why? Not because you're a mental health professional, but because you care. Right? How can we be caring, and how can, if somebody comes to you about their struggles, consider yourself gifted and blessed, because there's something about you that's warm and welcoming and inviting. That person trusts you enough to cross that threshold of self-loathing and embarrassment and shame to be able to say, hey, I need help. It's a gift. Assist is one way, one portal to be able to ask and hopefully intervene and if someone's at risk of suicide. So they don't get to the point where they're relying on the weather, you know, as a way not to do it. Can we intervene earlier so that people don't put plans in place? It's possible. I'm here to tell you that it's possible. Assist is one way and Safe Talk is the other. So both workshops, Assist is a little bit more intense. Safe Talk is like Assist light, where we learn to ask the question and we learn to get people to help to the appropriate resources, whether it's counseling, distress lines, connection with family, learning to someone will learn to help themselves. So we help with that with Safe Talk. So 2 ways we can do that. That's a lot of information in 40 minutes. So I'm wondering if this group is feeling like, whoa, that's a lot, Mireille. And guess what? It is. So I'm going to leave this presentation with 2 final slides. One of them is our how are we doing meter again, just to check in with each other. How are you feeling after having heard all this? Would you put yourself at the same part of the spectrum? Or maybe by reading some of those danger zone elements, you might think, well, maybe I am kind of in the yellow and maybe thought it was no big deal, but after hearing this, maybe I need to examine it more. If that's the case, good. Then you've learned something. And use this chart frequently. I do. When I'm riding my car to work, when I'm driving my car to work, I check in with myself. How you doing today? Are you weaving in and out of traffic like a mad woman? Are you patiently just driving to work with peace, with the radio on? Is there a lot on your mind? How are you doing today, Mireille? At what, and I know those things. At what point do you think you need help? Okay, what are the signs that you're not doing well? And is there a threshold? Well, I know that if I act in this way, if I don't sleep for 2 solid weeks, I'm going to be in trouble. I know it. I'm going to be struggling. What are your indicators? And finally, the last question to ask yourself is, who will you tell? Who will you tell when you're not feeling well? Is there at least one person in your life that you trust that you can say, hey, in my case, it's my mom. She's my best friend. Hey, Mom, I'm not feeling well. Do you got a minute? She'll say, sure, come on over. Right? After that, I feel good. It could be anybody in your life. It could be the person right next to you who smiled at you this morning and you thought, geez, I'd really like to get to know that person a bit better. Anybody. So I leave that with you. And I know that my colleague, Craig, will be around to field some questions. Right, Craig? Yep. Did I get that right? Yep. Probably yes. Yes. He's going to be around to do that. Yes? Okay, excellent. So I see a hand being raised. Is that somebody that has a question or?
That was a thumbs up.
That was a thumbs up that Craig was staying.
Oh, okay. Okay, that was just, okay, thank you. I really wish I was at that conference. It really looks like a lovely, lovely conference. So I want to thank Craig again for your honest and impactful testimonial that really weaved into this presentation. So again, thank you. And a special thank you to Dr. Mary Louise Ireland, who gave me some of these stats, and for both of you for making this presentation a reality. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and yeah, have a good dinner. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks very much, Mireille and Craig. This subject is pretty personal to myself. This presentation kind of hit me like a punch in the face and ended with a big warm hug. I'm serious. It's like myself, I've dealt with, like I mentioned, childhood abuse as a young boy. And I had a lot of suicidal thoughts when I was a young man, teenager, child. And then being burned, it brought a lot of that stuff back. And like Craig was mentioning, talking about it and sharing it with people, especially on a stage, it's really helped with my healing process. I would suggest maybe put a little more emotion into it, Craig, but you're doing pretty good. but really, man, like, I don't know what to say. Like, it was inspirational, inspiring. And we do have another 10, 12 minutes left, and Craig is more than willing to answer any questions or feel any thoughts that you guys want to share about his presentation. And I've talked to him quite a bit about this subject, and we've made a really good connection just based on this. And he is a wealth of information, so please continue this conversation for the next 10 minutes. We have the time.
If you don't mind the emotion in it, or whatever.
Shannon?
I don't think that, I personally, we haven't started talking about this subject very much.
No, but when I'm talking to an individual.
Oh, yes.
Who's potentially thinking about it.
Just speak to them, have the empathy, try to put yourself in their situation. That's the biggest part of it, because it's a personal thing. You don't really know how they're feeling. I mean, I've talked to Dan, I've talked to other people that have been down the road that I have. They all have different experiences. But if somebody had come along with Safe Talk or Assist that knew that stuff, they would have seen the warning signs in myself, and it could have helped. And to help somebody in the workplace, like there's going to be workers out there that they're going to be sitting in a corner, or they also could be overly fun, being the life of the party, and if they're not that person, if that's a sudden change in that person, I'm not saying that they are in distress, but they could be. Changes in behavior to look for that they're not normally doing. And just to go, and that's where, when I said, go and say, you want to go for coffee? You know, do you mind if I sit here? That kind of thing. Go a long way. Face-to-face counseling? Yeah, yes, it is. Like, Holman will be here this afternoon as part of the other presentation, and we have stressed to them that they have to bring back the face-to-face counseling. That the phone counseling and the Zoom counseling, it worked and it served its purpose during that time, but we have to get back to face-to-face. In the counseling, if it's not face-to-face, you can't really read their body language. And there's a lot of, if you can read the body language in somebody, it's better if it's face-to-face. You can't do it on the phone because you can't see them. And you can really hide it in a Zoom call. As everybody knows, you can hide lots of stuff. You're not wearing pants. People most of the time don't know you're not wearing pants, right? So there's lots of things you can hide on a Zoom. Oh, sorry. There's lots of things you can hide on those calls. You can't go to a counseling session without your pants on. So that's the important part of this. Talking with Dan. Dan's been an inspiration. If he can get up and talk about what happened to him, I could do the same.
I just want to add to something you said before. Somebody who seeks down and you talk to them, if all of a sudden they seem better, that's not necessarily a good sign.
That's right. I've had a discussion even last night with my wife. If you're in the red zone, you're going to tell the person that's in your face exactly what they want to hear so they go away, because it's a private thing. So just because they tell you they're okay doesn't mean they really are. Yeah, it is important, and it's hard if you've never been in the situation that I was in and that Dan was in. You don't really have the concept of where we are in our minds, because we're not doing it to you, we're doing it for you.
You're starting to see more young people finishing high school and having depression and anxiety and all that. Don't know if they want to go to college, and all of a sudden they turn 19 and then they're cut off from your benefits. What happens then? Our benefits can't help them, they're still living at home.
I have to be careful with this, but if you call Homewood, one of your family members calls Homewood and says they're with Power Sector Benefit Trust, they don't check. You can get counseling, and they've told me that they do it, because we had an individual where I wanted to arrange that for someone, and they don't check to see who is on the plan or not, right? They don't have time. And in a crisis situation, they don't, it would take them 2 days to find out whether they're on the plan, and you can't wait 2 days in some of this stuff. And Homewood has a good hotline that, again, I didn't know they had it until I had to use it. If you need counseling that moment, you tell them that you need to talk to someone right away. And they won't put you on hold, and they will get somebody as a counselor to help you right away in that moment. So there's the kids helpline, there's lots of helplines out there, but Homewood, as part of their service for us, will do that. So you don't have to go looking for some place to call. Call Homewood, be honest, and tell them what your needs are, and they'll look after you.
That's awesome, Craig. Bring it in. Seriously.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that was awesome. Thank you very much, Craig. Seriously. And Mireille, great job.
Thank you.
One thing that Craig really hit home with me with his presentation is very simple. You don't need to be trained. You don't need to be certified. You don't even have to know what to say. You just have to be there. Because these thoughts that we have when we're in these dark places, it is a very private thing. And people aren't going to follow through with this sort of stuff when they're with other people. So it's not really about saying the right thing. It's just about being present and being there for them. Like just sitting down and watching TV with somebody. You don't have to say a word, just be there. That kind of thing really meant a lot to me when I was in my healing process. And it did wonders for my heart and my soul. It kept me alive. It really did. And for Craig to share all this with you guys got to give him respect, because you just don't know how hard it is. And on that, we're going to head for lunch, and we're going to continue this conversation over lunch, I'm sure, and we're going to keep on healing and keep on growing. So back here, 12:59, everybody. Start at 1 o'clock. Thanks very much.
Thank you.